Hey family, welcome to the first episode of Heart on the Altar. I'm Brittany and I'm so excited to be here with you today. And I cannot lie, also a little afraid, maybe sweating. There have been so many real conversations that I've had with myself and others about the imposter syndrome. Why even start a podcast? Why does this matter? And I can't help but say, I am so passionate about people becoming real disciples after Christ. That means being a follower after him. And so I had to do something about it. And I feel like this is going to be the platform where we can really lay it all out. No fillers, no filters, just be authentically who God created us to be. And that is to be in obedience to him and following after him and learning what that even means. And so this podcast, Heart on the Altar, is all for his glory. There is nothing, I am not in this for self-gain, but I am in this so that others can hear that there is hope, that there is truth, and there is healing in Christ Jesus. And I believe that with every fiber of my being. So what can you expect on Heart on the Altar? Well, you can expect me to misspeak. I say so many words wrong sometimes. You can expect me to get super excited and sometimes just really level out real quick. You can expect me to move my hands a lot. I talk with my hands. My sister called them karate hands. You can also expect me just to be real. There are going to be real moments where it might get heavy emotion. There might be passionate moments. Oh, when I say there might be, there will be. So I just want to invite you into the real life of what it looks like to live authentically and fully surrender to Jesus. That is what this platform is for. And so I am so excited to have this as our first episode. If you haven't heard me say excited like 15 times. And I thought what would be a great idea is first to tell you a little bit about myself. I tried to figure out, how do you tell your story in only like 30 minutes? I am 32 years old, and that would be a lot of time and to try to explain every little bit and piece of my life. So I'm going to kind of go over the high things that I have gone through, and episodes go on, you're going to really hear a deep dive into some of those experiences. So I first want to start with, who am I? What do I do now? I am married to my wonderful husband, Angel. I love him so much. We have been married for 8 years. We've been together for 10, and I cannot wait for so many more years. I always tell him I wish we met sooner because I know that he is a gift from God. We have 4 beautiful children. I have 2 bonus babies. They're my stepkids. I have a 16-year-old named Michelle, and I have a 12-year-old named Aiden. And then we have our twins, who are Jackson and Hazel, who are 6 years old. So my heart is full, okay? I have my hands full with being a wife, having kids. And on top of that, I work a full-time job. I run my nonprofit, and then we start this podcast. And I'm involved in my church. I don't say that because it is going to be any impressive thing or to gloat. I say that because I fail often. I don't always hit the mark of my perfectionist checklist. But what I can say is I have never been so joyful, so full of life, and so in love with Jesus than I have been now. If you know me, you know that I'm a workaholic. I love to work. I love to get stuff done. But the Lord really had to strip me and remind me that I'm ultimately his. So that is who I am. And this is kind of a little detour of what I've been through. So my mother was addicted to drugs, and it was catastrophic for our family. My parents were divorced at a young age. The first memory I have of my parents ever being in the same place was at an exchange where my dad came to pick us up, and all I remember is my mom and dad yelling at each other and for my sister to come get in the car or something. And that's pretty much it. I don't know what they were talking about, but it was a memory that really stuck with me. And from the very beginning, I can only remember that it was just highs and lows, with not knowing where we were going to sleep, not knowing if we were going to have dinner that night, being dropped off at random people's houses, waiting and hoping, can't wait to get to the weekend till our dad came and picked us up, missing school, not understanding what was actually going on around us. And it was hard. there were a lot of hard moments when you leave children and they are not protected by parents. So many things happen. And so it has been a journey. From that point, I lived with my dad. My dad, he's phenomenal. Every human being, even now as a parent, we are all flawed. We all bring our own trauma into whatever we're doing. And what I love about my dad is that he stuck around and he fought for us. And if you know the court systems and you knew the court systems in the early 2000s, it was not easy for dads. And so it has been one of the, I would say, the key stakes in my life. Knowing that I had somewhere to turn. My dad was so firm in church. He then remarried to my wonderful stepmom, Rose, and our life took a dramatic shift. It was a 2-parent home. We were in school all the time. Food was always on the table. We had clothes, shoes. We had everything. And there was still a huge hole in my heart because I didn't understand. I didn't understand how to process the past and how now everything felt good. And then we had our regular family struggles, right? And it was one of those things that I would go to youth group, sing my heart out. I really believed that God was good. And then I would go to school and act like a little hood rat. So there were so many times where I was the mean girl. There was just so many things in my life that I wish I could redo. And that was my high school years, just being out there. Okay. I didn't need to be out there. I needed to sit my butt down. So pretty much going into my senior year in high school in 2010, we found out that my older sister was murdered. This was the most ground shaking thing I have ever experienced. I vividly remember the night we all found out, and I just didn't know. I couldn't fathom how this was our real life. I loved watching Law and Order SVU, and it was literally, this is what was happening in my family today. And I remember seeing everyone so broken. And so I just went into helper mode. I'm like, okay, let me make sure everyone's good. Let me make sure my dad's good. Let me just make sure all the pieces are right. And God, if you're good, you'll help us and you'll make everyone good. And we don't need to more, like we can just move forward. And what that resulted in, I think it was a 2-part thing. I started seeking after Christ really, but it was real head knowledge, okay? I was reading my Bible. I was really trying to be closer to God. And I do think he honored that time. And I felt called to go to school, and I didn't want to go to college. I felt called to really step into ministry. And it seemed impossible. And God just kept opening door. And I got to go to college. And through that college experience, really just found my love for teaching. I've taught my whole life, been a volunteer everywhere. And I love when someone understands that Jesus loves them. That is my bread and butter. And so there was a time in college that I also was a college student. I found this boy who I'm obsessed with you. And he was not the boy, okay? He was an alcoholic. He did not 100% want me because he was broken. And through our trauma, we bonded. And there was one day, I will never forget this day. I was walking because I already told you guys, workaholic, love to be all about busybody, a part of everything. I love to help, sometimes to the detriment. And I was going to do a tour of some of our foreign exchange students of the college. And so when doing this, I'm walking out and I see him behind. I see his back and I'm walking up. I was going to go say hi. Literally right in front of me, he kisses another girl and turns around and looks at me. I was heartbroken, but did I cry? No, I did not. I looked at him and I kept on walking and I did the tour. And you would have not known anything. I'm here's the cafeteria. This is the rec room. And I just kept going on. And I remember walking back to my dorm room. And as soon as I entered the door, I just collapsed. I was so hurt and so broken. And immediately a girl that was in that room was like, we should go out and party. Brittany, you just need to let it go. I know some of you got that friends and you don't need those friends. Okay. And that started a whole new adventure that I had no business in. Okay. It began clubbing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then going to church on Sunday. And it was, in the moment, it felt invigorating. I felt so empowered and all of these false feelings, because I would still, in the middle of the night, as I got home, I would still feel empty. I would still feel like I was wanting something more. And so one time I was trying to get on this party bus. Okay. So if you don't know what a party bus is, you don't need to know. Okay. So it's a bus where a bunch of people get on, they're playing music, everyone's dancing, just hood rat stuff. And I wanted to get on this party bus, and I had a friend, his name was Austin. He was on the party bus and he was at the door. And I was trying to walk in, and he was like, you're not supposed to be here. And I was like, excuse me, sir. I paid my $10 to be on this party bus. And he was like, nope, you cannot come in. Guys, if I can tell you, I wish I could say that I just went back to my dorm room and was like, oh God, this is not what you want from me. No, I jumped in a car and then I just drove to the club myself with some friends, and we just went on our own. But I tell that story because I remember Austin and myself sitting in the library, and he looked me in the eye and he was like, Brittani, this is not you. Like, you're not supposed to be that girl. And I was shocked. At first I wanted to punch him, and I was just like, okay. And from that moment on, I really started to look and evaluate, who am I? I actually don't know. I was a chameleon. I could fit in anywhere. I could look like the best. I thought I looked the best. I really tried hard to be friends with everyone, be the deep person, be the one who was on everyone's side, speak, do. That's what I was trying to do. And there was a moment where I had a roommate who was an alcoholic. I guess I have issues with attracting alcoholics, obviously. And I was telling this woman, her name was Mama Mo, at the church, I was telling her all about the drama, the tea, as they would say. I was telling her, and I was like, girl, this girl needs Jesus. Little did I know, she was looking at me like, this girl needs Jesus. So she invited me to a place called Celebrate Recovery. Celebrate Recovery is Christian AA. It's run like AA, but it focuses on Jesus Christ as our higher power. And I'm like, perfect. This is what she needs. So we show up, and my friend Dallas, he was singing, he was leading worship. And for the first time, he was singing the song, man, every time this gets me, he was singing How He Loves Us. And I remember standing there and I'm just weeping. And I'm like, how could he love me? I am the biggest hypocrite there is. I love him, but I really love my sin. Like, I love feeling included. I love like this tangible, touchy, all of this. I loved that. And how could he love someone like me? And I just sat on that floor, snot and all. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with pretending. I cannot pretend like my life is daisies and roses. Like, I need you, Lord. And that was one of the biggest moments that really turned my heart in the right direction. And I got a sponsor, so it would be like a mentor, someone who discipled me. And she whipped my butt, okay? So she called me to a life of honesty that I've never been called to before, helped me walk through a suppressed mourning of 8 years of my sister's death, trauma that I never told anyone, all with grace. And all with biblical truth. And so from that moment on, I was sold out. I loved Jesus. And I kept saying, like, I'm going to live my life for him. And I knew that the next step was moving into ministry. So now, fast forward, I'm now in ministry. I'm working at a prominent church in California, and I am loving it. When I said I was loving it, I loved everything about it. I thrived in this big church. This was literally, I got to use my leadership gifts. I got to love on people. I got to speak. I got to teach. I've met incredible people, and my kids got to grow up there. So I knew, I'm like, I want to be here for the rest of my life. I want to serve at this church for the rest of my life. And so I started pursuing position after position, and I ended up as our children's pastor there. And when I tell you that I prayed for this position, I mean, it was answered prayer for the salary, for the process, everything, I prayed for it, and I know God answered. But there was another prayer that I prayed all in the meantime. And so be careful what you pray for, okay? I prayed, I'm like, Lord, I want to know you. I want to really know you. And that was the song I would play every day on my way to work. I would shout it from the top of my lungs that, God, I want more of you. And I didn't know what I was praying. I thought I was praying for, more, this position, leading in this capacity, having our VBSs with over 2,000 kids, leading the volunteers. It gave me so much life. And I wasn't leaving if it was up to me. And I know that this was the Lord's will now. In the moment, I did not. In that time, my oldest daughter, had a really hard time. And she made some major mistakes that majorly affected our family. And because of those mistakes, there was a dilemma. We had to decide if we were going to stay at the church or leave. And we had the option to stay. But God was calling me to go. And I was asking him, I was telling him, no, you can make this right. You can clear everything up. There's all these resources right here. You can do it. So I'm like standing in faith, but also in so much brokenness that I could not believe what my life was looking like at that moment. I was on the highest mountaintop, seeking after him with everything. And then in a moment, everything was stripped away. And I remember being so depressed to the point where my husband would call me every single day around his lunchtime and ask me if I got up. The most I did was take care of my kids, get them food, and I would just sit with the TV on and play this game, Farm Life, on my phone. I was spending money on this game. Like I checked out, and I just was so confused. And in that time, it was a 6-month span that I just spent every single day with the Lord, even when I didn't want to. I was broken, like I wish I could, if people could see, I was not myself. I literally could not figure out why my whole life changed and no one else's didn't. And I remember in that moment thinking, okay, God, if you say you are a God, you are a redeemer, I need you to meet me. I am desperate. And if it's just me being a mom to my kids and a wife to my husband, so be it. And through that time, God just completely started the healing process. And he gave me a vision for my nonprofit. It's called Journey to Hope Ministries. It's for foster youth who are exiting the foster care system. And I was like, what? Okay, Journey to Hope. What does that mean? And as I started discovering the call he had for my life, that was one. And he gave me a couple other dreams, and another one was this podcast. I wasn't ready to start the podcast. I knew I was not healthy enough to get on any camera and share my experience yet. I also knew that I needed time to make sure that I would not hate the church. I love God's church. I love God's people. I love my pastors. And so it was so important to me to take that time. And then I felt like when I was ready, God was like, no. And so it took a while. And so now I'm fast forwarding again. Now we are actively serving in church, and my kids are now 6 years old. And I'm like, I can't believe it. My 2-year-olds are 6 years old. How does this even happen? And we are loving our church that we're at. And I do the announcements. I sometimes call myself like the Gab girl, because sometimes I just be up there talking, y'all. And I'm over here like, here's my little mini message before Jeff gets on, because I'm so passionate about people getting that worship is not about your comfort. It's not about you. It is about completely giving the glory to God. And so I remember one day I'm up there, I have like announcements and I always forget them. So I like have to have my notes, and I'm like going on. I'm like, okay, Brittany, you really got to get off the stage. We have a full service today. And I remember walking to my chair and I sat with the Lord. And I just was like, God, like, I feel like you've given me so much to say, God, that I want to be able to share the truth that you've been sharing with me. And God, if I never do, may your presence, like may just being with you be enough. May being a mom just be enough. May being a wife just be enough. And I know some of you are like, Brittany, that's easy. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for me to trade achievements and goals and all of those things for what society is like, oh, you just want to be this. Like, it's hard for me. And I remember pausing in real life. God, if I don't do anything, if I never step on a stage, if I never preach, it's okay because I have you. Service ends. Okay. Drum roll, because it's about to get crazy. I typically stand around and people come and ask me questions and things like that, or ask for prayer, and no one comes. I'm kind of like standing there awkwardly, like, hello. And so a gentleman walks up to me and he was like, Brittani, I know this might sound strange, but have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Yes. Jaw drops, okay? I was literally like, what are you talking about? I could not believe. I literally told him, you have no idea the prayer I just prayed 20 minutes ago. And that was just the start of how this podcast came about. This is not about perfection. I am not perfect. I am not the greatest teacher. I don't know everything about the Bible. But what I do know is that when we authentically, wholeheartedly surrender to Jesus, he is faithful and he will be with us. When I was going through the really hard times, there are two verses that have stuck with me, and those are the foundations for this podcast. So one verse is Isaiah 26:3. So I'm going to turn to that because sometimes I fumble my words and I don't want to do that to the God's word on the internet. So Isaiah 26:3-4. You keep the mind that is dependent on you in perfect peace, for it is trusting in you. Trust in the Lord forever, because in the Lord himself is the everlasting rock. So you keep a mind that is dependent on you in perfect peace, for it is trusting in you. When I was going through everything with the church and knowing that I was no longer going to be able to lead in the capacity that I was leading in, this was the verse that I would, what did they say, like knuckle grip, my white knuckles or something. I would be gripping my fist in my lap and saying, you will keep in perfect peace a mind that is dependent on you, because I was so anxious. The anxiety levels were so high. I've never experienced so much stress, and being able to sit in a conversation and say that I know I am called, and I had to be okay with the result. And so that is one of the verses that was just very pivotal that we will get into. I want to really break it down. I love that these verses seem simple, but they're really not. They're really hard to be saying that we actually trust into the Lord, because most of my girls that I disciple, when they tell me I trust in God, I'm like, girl, you are better than me, because I am always working on my trust in some area of my life. Trusting in the Lord is one of the hardest things I have ever done. It is something that is a continual daily practice. And the next verse is Proverbs 3:5-6. I do have this memorized. Most people have this memorized. Most kids have this memorized. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, know him, and he will make your path straight. What I love about this verse, one, it is so hard and so difficult. When it says trust in the Lord with all of your heart, everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the frustrating. This verse has humbled me so much that, like, when my kids are like going crazy, I have to pray. When I'm so angry and frustrated with my husband, I have to pray. When I'm angry and frustrated with myself, he says, come to him in all things. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself because episode 2 is going to be diving in deep to Proverbs 3:5-6 and Isaiah 26:3. But I cannot stress that I don't know all the plans that God has for me. And I shouldn't, because knowing me, I'm like, all right, Jesus, buckle up in the back seat. We going, okay? And I would destroy it. But living in his perfect way, in his perfect peace, trusting that he will make all things right. There's so many great things that God does that I will often miss when I have my own agenda. And so this podcast is literally, I want you to know, this is a pause. This is stop your week. It should be the middle of the week. It's going to be launching on Wednesdays or dropping on Wednesdays. And the most important thing about, as you're listening to Heart on the Altar, it is not just another podcast. If it is that, please don't turn it on. This is for you to pause and reflect and ask yourself, am I completely laying it all at Jesus's feet? Do I really believe in what he says, and is it true? And it's okay if you say no. that is a part of the process, that he will meet us every single step of the way, and he is just that good. So we are going to dive heavy, deep into all of those things. You're going to hear a lot of Bible, because I could talk all the stories, but if we don't really talk about what these scripture means and how to apply them, then this is all for nothing. We'll hear stories. I'm so excited to have my pastor on. He has taught our church and me personally how to dwell in God's spirit, and that has been incredible. And so I'm excited to get him on and talk. That one's going to be like a 9-part series, because we could talk for a long time, but don't worry guys, let it dwell. But I'm so excited that you guys joined, and I can't wait to just continue this journey. It has just started. It is just beginning, and know that there is still hope. We don't have to leave today thinking that it's over. We can choose to trust in Jesus. He can hold everything, literally everything, and I will bet everything on that. So I pray that this episode has blessed you, to know that you are not alone, that whatever you've been through, there's someone who sees you, who knows you, who wants to hear from you. So like and subscribe. But the biggest thing I want you to walk away with today is a heart on the altar is a heart that is fully his, nothing withheld, and it is all for his glory. Join us next week as we jump into Proverbs 3:5-6 and Isaiah 26:3. All right, guys, see you then.